The morning sun slowly climbed over the horizon, bathing the desert garden in soft golden light. Dewdrops clung to the petals of flowers, shimmering like tiny diamonds. The air was still, calm, yet full of life. And in the center of that quiet garden stood a beautiful red rose, proud and radiant. Her petals were velvet, her fragrance sweet and intoxicating. Every breeze that passed seemed to stop and admire her. She was the queen of the garden, admired, adored, and envied by all. But right beside her, in the same dry soil, grew a cactus, rough, thorny, and dull green. No fragrance, no color, just spikes and silence. The rose would often glance sideways at the cactus and scoff. "Oh, look at you," she'd say, her voice dripping with arrogance. "So ugly, so full of thorns. What good are you in this beautiful garden?" The cactus said nothing. He simply stood there quietly, soaking in the sun, holding water deep within his heart. Days turned into weeks. The rose became more beautiful, more admired. Butterflies fluttered around her. Birds sang her praises. She basked in their attention. Every time the gardener came, he would water the plants, especially the rose. She would lift her petals proudly and say, "See, everyone loves me." The cactus, however, never received much. The gardener gave him water only once in a while. He didn't complain. He didn't compete. He just endured, his roots reaching deeper into the earth to store every last drop. One evening, as the sky burned orange with sunset, the rose couldn't hold back her arrogance anymore. She said mockingly, "You poor thing, how do you even survive here? You have no beauty, no perfume, no admirers, just thorns. Don't you ever wish you were me?" The cactus finally spoke. His voice was calm, patient, like the earth itself. "I don't wish to be anyone else," he said. "The sun loves me, the desert accepts me, and I'm thankful for the life I've been given." The rose laughed. "Thankful for this?" She shook her petals. "You're nothing but a prickly rock, pretending to be a plant." The cactus didn't reply. He just smiled faintly and went back to being silent. A few weeks later, the skies grew dim. Clouds stopped visiting. The gardener stopped coming. Day after day, the sun grew hotter and the soil drier. The once lively garden began to fade. Leaves wilted, flowers drooped. The rose, who had always been the pride of the garden, was now gasping for water. Her petals lost their shine. Her fragrance began to fade. Desperate, she looked around, but there was no rain, no gardener, no help. She turned toward the cactus. He stood strong and steady, his green body still full of life. "How are you still alive?" she whispered. "I'm dying, and you look so calm." The cactus looked at her kindly. "I've learned to save what I need," he said. "When the world gave me less, I learned to hold on. I didn't waste my blessings." Tears welled up in the rose's dry eyes. I was wrong about you," she said softly. "You're not weak. You're wise." The cactus smiled again. "Don't be sad. Everyone blooms differently. You shared your beauty when the world was full of rain. Now, let me share my strength." And with that, he whispered to the roots beneath him. Slowly, quietly, he let some of his stored water seep through the earth, inch by inch, until it reached the roots of the dying rose. The next morning, the rose felt something cool at her roots. Life began to return. Her stems straightened, her color deepened. She lifted her petals to the sun again, fragile but alive. When the gardener finally returned days later, he was astonished. Almost every flower in the garden had withered, but the rose had survived. And right beside her, the cactus stood silently, as humble as ever. The gardener knelt down and whispered, "How did you make it through the drought?" The rose couldn't answer, but she knew. She looked at the cactus, her eyes full of gratitude. For the first time, she truly saw him, not as ugly or rough, but as strong, kind, and selfless. The thorns that she once mocked were actually his armor. The silence she once disliked was his peace. As the seasons changed and rain returned, the rose bloomed once more beautiful than ever. But this time, her heart had changed. She no longer mocked the cactus, she admired him. When butterflies came and asked, "Why do you stay beside that old cactus?" she smiled and said, "Because when the world abandoned me, he shared his life so I could live." From that day on, the garden was different. The rose learned humility, the cactus taught compassion, and together they showed that real beauty isn't about how you look, it's about how you make others feel. In life, we often judge people by what we see on the surface. We admire the roses, their color, their charm, and overlook the cactus, who quietly endures the heat, storing strength within. But when the storms come, when the world grows dry, it's not always beauty that saves us. Sometimes it's the strength we never noticed. So, before you judge someone's worth, look deeper. The person you overlook today may be the one who saves you tomorrow. Because true beauty doesn't fade with time. It grows through kindness, humility, and love. The rose's transformation was more than survival. It was awakening. Her pride had melted into gratitude. Her beauty now carried wisdom, a reminder that every soul has value. And the cactus, though still silent, became the silent guardian of the garden, the unseen strength behind every bloom. In every heart lies both the rose and the cactus, one that shines in the light and one that endures in the storm. Together, they complete the garden of life, because kindness is strength, and strength is beauty. And in the end, it's not what we show to the world that defines us, but what we share with it. Rose and cactus.